Hi, and welcome to this little preview of my upcoming course on the history of County Longford. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you through a small, short PowerPoint presentation, and the idea is to give you an overview of the history from the earliest times up to modern times. The course itself obviously will provide a lot of the detail, but I just want to give a quick summary. So bear with me now and I'll get my PowerPoint presentation working. So welcome to this short presentation on County Longford. The spelling in Irish and pronunciation for it is Longford. We'll see where that name came from. And of course, it is associated with the O'Farrells. Longford is sometimes known as the O'Farrell country. So just a quick introduction. I'm an Irish historian. I live on Cape Cod. I've developed two programs over the last 10 years. One is a chronological general history of Ireland that starts roughly 430 million years ago and goes right up to today. The other program is a history of each of the 32 counties of Ireland. Now, each course is presented live on Zoom once a week for 4 weeks. So the only commitment is to join a particular month, course. The recordings then are available to those who cannot attend live. There's two main contacts, my webpage, irishhistory.online, or my email address. A little bit about my methodology. So in my researches, I employ archaeological data, geological records, linguistic analysis, historical analysis, and local folklore to construct my courses. The historical materials include ancient documents, manuscripts, annals, and scholarly research from the past 1,000 years. My aim is to make the presentations accessible by using simple English, in other words, free of jargon, and by presenting a summary of the content on each slide. I reference the content of each slide and include additional reference materials for anyone wishing to delve further into the topics that are covered. So in January, my two courses will be the history of County Longford and the Viking invasions of Ireland. Now, this video will focus exclusively on Longford. I will briefly introduce the main topics from the course, and I present it in chronological order. Longford, like every county in Ireland, has a long and varied history, some more than others. The ones on the coastline would have a longer history generally. To get into the inside of the country would have presented difficulties. So Longford, we estimate there's history going back about 9,000 years. You have prehistoric monuments from the Neolithic and later eras, including portals that are spread around the county. Also, we've begun discovering underneath the bogs of Ireland. For a long time, people thought there was nothing under the bogs. Now we know that there's evidence of earlier peoples. So there's an extraordinary Corlea bog trackway in County Longford dating back to 148 BC, part of which is now preserved in a visitor's interpretive centre. Now, the largest trackway is made from massive oak, beech, and elder beams. And to give you an idea of the work involved and the resources needed, it took about 2,000 mature oak trees to make 1 mile of roadway. So this is what it looked like when it was discovered. And it was under the bogs, literally for thousands of years. But the material, because the bog is great for preservation. So we are discovering evidence of things that went on in Ireland thousands of years ago. Moving on a little bit then, St. Patrick, and in the modern day Granard, a town in Longford, there's a statue of St. Patrick. The story is that he visited the village as he traveled around the county in the 5th century. Now, St. Mel was a 5th century saint in Ireland who was a nephew of St. Patrick. Now, he was the son of Conus and St. Patrick's sister, Dorerca. Mel and his brothers, Melchu, Munis, and Rioch, accompanied Uncle Patrick to Ireland and helped him with his missionary work. Now, after the church at Ardagh was built, the famous church of Ardagh, where we get the Ardagh chalice from, Patrick appointed Mel as Bishop of Ardagh. Mel is noted as the bishop who mistakenly ordained St. Bridget as a bishop. And I go into detail about what that mistake was. Another thing about St. Mel, he's known as the patron saint of single people. Now, we have the kingdom of Clonmacnoise. Now, Clonmac was the eldest son of the famous first century Queen Maeve. If any of you have learned about ancient Irish history, you would probably have come across her. So Clonmac was her son, and the father was King Fergus. So Clonmac then erected his inheritance from both of them into the kingdom of Clonmacnoise, called after him. Now, the territory corresponding to County Longford was a frontier colony of the kingdom of Meath in the first millennium. And between the 5th and 12th centuries, the territory was called the kingdom of Tetba. Now, the clan led by Angela, anglicised as Annalee, ruled part of this kingdom, bounded on one side by the river Shannon and the other by the river Inny. Now, in the year 1070 AD, Tetba was conquered by the O'Quins, the O'Fargals, and other Clonmacnoise tribes, henceforth being known as Muintir Annalee, so named after Angela, the great-grandfather of Fergal. Now, Angela's grandson and clan leader, Fergal, became so distinguished and powerful that his descendants were called O'Fargals, which was anglicised into O'Farrells. It was around this time, around the 10th to 11th centuries, that surnames began to be introduced in Ireland. So in Ireland, they looked for a member of their family, distant family in some cases. And if it was distant, you usually ended up with an O. Mock in Irish means son of, so that would be just a separation of one generation. So we didn't go, for instance, like the English, who used colours and used trades as the basis of a lot of their names. A little bit about the O'Farrell clan history. It comes from two words, far, which is the Irish word for man, and gal, which is in English it means valor. So it's a man of valor. Now, he was slain by the Danes in 1014 at the famous Battle of Clontarf, when there was a final victory over the Vikings. The O'Farrells were one of the four chief clans of the Clonmacnoise. They were princes of Annalee. Their chief seat of power was Longford Fargal, which translates as O'Farrell's fortress. That's the present-day Longford town. Now, following the Norman invasion of 1169, Annalee was granted to the Norman Hugh de Lacy as part of the Liberty of Meath. The town of Granard was sacked then by Edward Bruce in 1315. Significance of that then was that the O'Farrells soon recovered complete control over the territory. Now, Annalee later became Longford, now Longford, called after O'Farrell's fortress of the same name. The county was officially shired, which means made into a county, in 1586 in the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. County Longford was then added to Leinster by King James I, who succeeded Elizabeth I, and he did that in 1608. What's significant here is that previously Longford had been part of the kingdom or the province of Connacht. A little bit about the Farrell clan history. The clan lost most of their lands during the colonial confiscations of King James I in the early 17th century. As a result, clan members then became tenants of the new English and Scottish landlords in what was then County Longford. English and Scottish settlers were planted in Longford during the 16th and early 17th century. Now, the Farrell clan lost its control of the area about 233 years ago, or 230 years ago, when they were forced to take flight as part of what's known as the Flight of the Arrows, and there's the Flight of the Wild Geese at a later stage, and they lived abroad for 150 years before returning to an uncertain future, and the majority of them settled back in their native territory of Longford. A little bit about rebellious Longford. In 1641, the county became involved in the Catholic Confederacy, which ruled Ireland for about 7 years until it was defeated by Cromwell in 1649. A while later, then the county was a centre of the 1798 rebellion, when a French expeditionary force that was coming across from the west coast, trying to reach Dublin, was defeated near a village called Ballinammuck in September, and led by a British army led by Cornwallis. And if you know your American history, it's the same Cornwallis. A revolutionary spirit was again woken in the county during the Irish War of Independence, 1919 to 1921, when the North Longford Flying Column, led by Sean McKeown, who was known as the Blacksmith of Ballinallee, became one of the most active units during that war. The Great Hunger, or famine, known in Irish as An Gorta Mór. So a couple of things about it. In 1821, the county's population was over 107,000, and it had increased by another 7 or 8% up, by 1841. Now, during the Great Hunger from 1845 to 1852, the population decreased significantly to 82,000 by 1851. Now, the Great Hunger in Ireland then was followed by over a century of emigration, which Ireland lost more people from than died and emigrated during the Great Hunger. So the population continued to decrease down to just under 40,000 by 1926. In 2016, the population was just 40,000. All this is clear evidence of the effects of the Great Hunger, emigration, and internal migration. There are certain individuals that the county is famous for. One of them is Kitty Kiernan. Now, Kitty, known as Bridget, was a famous Longford woman, primarily because she was the fiancée of the Irish revolutionary leader Michael Collins. The family owned the Grenville Arms Hotel in Longford, where Kitty met Collins in May 1917. The hotel was a meeting place for Irish revolutionaries. Collins and his friend Harry Boland, they vied for Kitty's affections initially, but Collins eventually won and became engaged to her. Now, his political duties and other work took up much of his time, and from the latter half of 1921 until his death, Collins and Kiernan exchanged over 300 love letters. Some of these letters are on display in Cork in the public museum there. Kitty was heartbroken by the tragic death of Collins, and 3 years later she married Felix Cronin, who was the Quartermaster General of the Free State Army. They had 2 sons, one of whom was christened Michael Collins Cronin. A couple of literary figures. Oliver Goldsmith was born there. Maria Edgeworth spent much of her life there. Patrick Collum, he was a poet, playwright, biographer, and folklorist, as well as a lecturer in US colleges. Then there was John Keegan Casey, known by his pen name Leo. He was a member of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, or a Fenian, and he penned the famous ballad, The Rising of the Moon. So that just gives you a quick glimpse into what I will be presenting in a lot more detail. So in January, you have a couple of options. You could register by sending an email to me at seanmurphy630@gmail.com, or you can go and register online at irishhistory.online. So on Thursdays, January 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th, from 6 to 7:30, I give the history of County Longford. And then from 7:30 to 9, I continue with the Viking invasions. Now, all presentations are live on Zoom. Now, the courses are also available by recordings because many people just cannot make Thursdays. Now, the fee for each 4-week course is $100. So I hope that helped you get some idea of what I will be presenting, and I hope you found it interesting. I will be continuing with more courses. There's 32 counties in Ireland, so I will be continuing as long as I can. So it was nice talking with you, and I hope some of you will have an interest in my courses. Thank you.